So, as Colin said, my name's Penny, and I was diagnosed at the age of 14 and a half, which was in 1997, and I'm also the oldest of four girls. So I'm now 30, my sister Heather's 27, and my twin sisters are 23. So I was 7.5 when they were born. But before to working successfully, I'll talk a bit about how I got to working. So as a child, as you can tell from the photos, I liked playing doctors and nurses. That's me, and that's my little sister Heather when we were much smaller than we are now. And that's my dad with a lot more hair and also much darker hair. As an aside, I was in about grade 4 when one of my friends asked me, "Penny, is that your grandpa?" It turned out that it was actually my dad. He went white quite early. So I've always been interested in medicine, but in high school I couldn't really see myself or imagine myself as a doctor. And I was also worried about how I'd cope with the medicine course. So from year 10, I started going to the university open days. And it was actually at the first open day at Monash Uni, I heard a talk about the new course, Bachelor of Biomedical Science. And after looking at Monash, Melbourne, RMIT and Swinburne, it ended up being that the very first course I ever heard talked about was my first preference. And I also add that I didn't consider La Trobe Uni at all in Bundoora, mainly because I live in Hampton and Bundoora was too far away for commuting every day from Hampton, and I wasn't ready to move out of home. I studied Year 12 over 2 years, but I actually did 8 subjects over those 2 years. And from a work perspective, from Year 9 onwards, I did a bit of babysitting at the very low rate of $5 an hour to start off with. And Mum was suggesting, "Oh, why don't you get a job in Coles or Safeway?" But any time I did a little bit of shopping, probably just like your chewing gum and lollies or whatever, I always felt conscious about taking a while to find money in my purse and whatever, and I knew I didn't want to be a checkout chick. So on to uni. I got into my first preference of the Bachelor of Biomedical Science from 2002 to 2004. So what did I do work-wise while I was studying for 3 years? This was from when I was 19 until I was 22. Still babysitting, rates going up slightly. And I did some individual tutoring, so like one-on-one. Like I'd done a bit of help just of my classmates at school. I also was the student rep in 2nd and 3rd year, which was a contrast to school. So like I was accepted more for who I was at uni. And associated with the Aspergers syndrome, I was part of Monash University Ability Group, MUAG, in 2nd and 3rd year, and we created a book, a resource guide for students with a disability. And the eye-opener there was meeting people who were blind or hearing impaired or whatever. And Ross Devent, who was blind and had a cane, he referred to poles about this high as castration poles. I'll never forget that line. And when I started biomedical science, I was more interested in how the body works. So that kind of is physiology. But helping out at the Monash Open Day in 2nd year uni, I was talking to Roger Evans, one of the physiology lecturers, during one of the lull spots, and I found out that I actually could do honours in epidemiology, which isn't the study of the skin, like most people think. It's basically using statistics to model the rate of disease. And if you open up the Age website, any medical story you read in the Age or the Herald Sun or the Australian or whatever often has been done through epidemiology. So I did honours in the Department of Epidemiology and Preventive Medicine in 2005. And if you think DEPM is a rather long abbreviation, the name of my honours project was even longer because I was using a cardiac surgery database to look at the risk factors for deep sternal wound infection and hemorrhage, which was lots of statistical analysis. And at the end of third year, there was an announcement on whatever the name of the discussion board was back then. They've changed their name so many times I've lost track. One of the tutors had posted up about there being a job available for a minute taker for the Public Health Association of Australia. And I happened to see this post within minutes of it going up because it was exam study time. So I applied for that and was successful. And this job, although rather mundane, just attending meetings and writing up the minutes, was an excellent foot in the door because Public Health Association of Australia and also AEA, that's Australian Epidemiology Association, have got conferences. And I've gone to a few of the conferences now. But because for a while I was sending out oodles of emails, at the first couple of conferences I went to, when someone saw my name tag, "Oh, you're Penny, the one who sends out all those emails." So, of course, my emailing had got me known even before they put the face to the name. And I also was the Ride to Work Day coordinator for several years, because I enjoy cycling, although injury has prevented me from doing much last summer. And this enabled me to, of course, get recognised at work as the cycling girl. So the other day at work, I was just on my way to the ladies mid-afternoon when Sabina caught me, that's the receptionist, and said, "Oh, Penny, can you come and talk to this new guy? He wants to know where the bike shed and the bike key, etc. is." So it is useful to be recognised, and I now don't coordinate Right to Work Day, but just yesterday I got an email from a colleague, "Penny, what's happening with the breakfast?" An email went around by someone else later in the day, luckily. And after doing my honours, I found that I really liked numbers, as the previous two speakers have already said. So I decided to do a Masters of Biostatistics. That's a 3-year course part-time, but you'll see that it took me 4 years. That's basically because my work project placement went pear-shaped. And while I was studying, I became an online tutor initially and then eventually on campus in epidemiology and biostatistics, which was just filling timesheets. And that led me to trouble in 2007 in my second year. Basically, this is when there were paper timesheets and you had to fill in the paper timesheet, and I could never remember my staff number. So it had gone all semester with me not filling in the timesheets, and I'd been doing a hell of a lot of work as well as the tutoring. And some of the graphs I produced are actually still in the module notes today. So basically it got to the end of semester, I put in all of my timesheets at once and all hell broke loose. So I ended up not getting paid for all of the extra hours I'd put in, which kind of threw me for a while. But I guess you could say that that experience has helped me now, because I am now the coordinator of 9 other tutors. You should see the spreadsheet I have got to keep track of everyone's timesheets. And just last week, we had one tutor who tutors in a few different subjects, easy enough to do on the electronic timesheets. When she was putting in her 2 hours of repeat tutoring, she put in the wrong code. Easy mistake. When I went to approve the timesheet, I noticed that it wasn't there. So about 9:30, 10 o'clock on Thursday night, sent her a text message saying, what's happened here? Only problem was that the other coordinator actually had approved it without checking. So it's created a little bit of a drama, but luckily this afternoon it was sorted out with many emails to HR on everyone's part. And also at the beginning of 2008, I worked in Sydney for 2 months on the Gadiga project, and I scribbled down a note there to mention that that particular job was in Sydney, and I was living at my mum's cousin's place in Waverton, which is North Sydney, and the job was in Liverpool, so we're talking like 1.5 hours on the train each way. But the interview was actually done over the phone, so that was a little bit challenging, because in an interview situation, you can tell when someone's about to start speaking. But over the phone, sometimes I'd begin to speak and they'd begin to speak at the same time, which was a little bit awkward. So on to looking for work, because I submitted my master's report just before Christmas at the end of 2009. And I was completely overstudied by this point, because I'd been studying for 8 years straight. And because of my project going pear-shaped, the previous Christmas I basically worked through. So it was quite good that I submitted just before Christmas. Anyone who works in academia will know that there is 2 weeks off and you get paid for it over the break. So there was no point to start looking until middle of January 2010. I found writing cover letters and addressing the selection criteria really hard, because I felt like I was boasting even when I was just stating what I could do. From the few job applications I put in, I was invited to one interview, but it turned out that that interview at Deakin was actually to do with organising a database, not actually doing data analysis or statistics. As I said before, I'd done lots of tutoring when I was doing my master's, and in early March I started tutoring again. And you might see the social media Facebook mentioned on the slide. That's actually because they were a tutor short for epidemiology, and all at once people were trying to contact me. They tried email, they tried ringing me, but it was actually one of my friends' private messages through Facebook saying, Penny, you need to contact us, we desperately need a tutor. It was actually Facebook that reached me first, because if you're killing time, what are you checking? Facebook. And at the end of March, I was directly emailed and approached about, we've got a position available for you, which was survival analysis, which was what I'd studied in my master's. And I was asked, are you available? And this particular job, it was actually through my tutoring contacts from 2009 that got this job. And I've been working in the Women's Health Research Program at Monash Uni for nearly 3.5 years. And also in this time, this is a rather uncharming photo of me blurting at my best friend Claire Hope's wedding, because Mango, her eldest son, was 17 months old at the wedding. So how do you get a toddler to smile for the photos? You need Auntie Penny to make herself look a bit silly. And as for interview attire, at this interview, which was a one-on-one with the boss of Women's Health, I dressed up into smart casual clothes, but I had a bit of a giggle when the person interviewing me, mid-moving offices or packing to get ready to move offices, was wearing a sleeveless cycling jersey, bike nicks and sneakers. So, needless to say, at the moment I'm wearing my black shoes, but quite often I will stay in my bright fluorescent pink sneakers all day at work because that's more comfortable. When I'm tutoring, I do actually wear my black shoes like now. So, on to work in general. When I started in 2010, I was a research assistant with teaching sessional timesheets put on the top. Then at the beginning of 2011, I was a research assistant with a 0.1 teaching role, which meant that I was half a day teaching. And as of July this year, my role has been changed to be teaching and research, and I'm now what's officially known as an assistant lecturer. Because I'm doing the Graduate Certificate of Academic Practice one subject at a time, I also made the decision as a coping strategy halfway through the year, rather than working 5 days a week, to work 4 days. When I was seeing my psych last Thursday, she asked me, how's your day off going, Penny? Well, 3 days a week research for data analysis of various descriptions, 1 day a week teaching, whether it be tutoring or lecturing, and 1 day off, well, it's currently being used for study. Or last week it was used to attend a rather interesting day of Melbourne's Festival of Ideas. So I had trouble thinking about strengths and weaknesses. Quite a few other speakers have mentioned strengths of attention to detail and being able to explain difficult concepts, being honest, being conscientious, although my supervisor did tell me off the other day when I'd gone to Warburton for a break, but it was a week before the students' assignments were due, and a couple of students were sending me emails, which I, of course, was checking on my phone. Was I responding to the student email? No. All I was doing was forwarding it to my supervisor, who was working, so she could respond to the student's query in a timely fashion. I thought that was the best compromise. And weaknesses, definitely anxiety on occasion, which sometimes causes stomach problems. But since I've been on the low FODMAP diet, because I'm fructose and lactose intolerant, I'm a lot better with that now. I'm not very assertive at telling colleagues who've come over for a chat to go away. I'm trying to work on XYZ because it should have been done yesterday, or these reviewers' comments we got last week and they're due tomorrow. Libby Gel interrupted everybody that week. And also home can affect work sometimes. And I'm also not very good at saying no, and I'm very good at taking on too much stuff. And having flexible hours does help. So anytime I go to the Aspergers group in the evening, I always rock up late to work the next day because Blackburn to Hampton is a long way. I can work from home, but it's a bit difficult at the moment because, of course, Mum's coming and going. So when Mum works at Holmes-Glen on a Wednesday, sometimes I work from home that day. And it also takes me a while to wind down if I've had activities at night. And the All Cats Have Aspergers Syndrome book picture is there for me to talk briefly about disclosure. Like Nick, I disclose about the Aspergers, but really as required. Mid-anxiety meltdown to my supervisor probably wasn't the best time, but since I got the cat book, needless to say, now I had the cat book, my Asperger's at work is common knowledge because a lot of people were given this book to have a look at when I first got it. And as for emails, I am famous for the kitchen cracket emails because the Burnett group downstairs published a journal article in the Christmas edition of the 2005 edition of the BMJ titled "The Case of the Disappearing Teaspoons," which is basically about every workplace's problem of teaspoons and cutlery, etc. going missing. And in our new office, we have a notorious problem. So occasionally it will be me who cracks it about there being no plates again. But I'll always include this journal article as well, just for the benefit of others who haven't seen it yet. So that always gets a laugh when I send that around. So as my role of a lecturer, this is the view that I get when I'm lecturing 300 students. I got panic attacks in year 12 and year 13 because I did year 12 over 2 years. When I was in first year uni, I used to sit on the edge of the row or only a couple in, so if I needed to, I could make a quick escape. And this is in S7, so it was actually in this very lecture theatre in first year that I had to do my one escape. But now, 11 years later, I'm at the front of the lecture theatre giving a lecture for 50 minutes, and this year I actually introduced an interactive activity halfway through my statistics lecture where I had 300 students, or however many turned up to that particular lecture, talking to the person next to them. And it was awesome being at the front and hearing so much chatter, and then able to shut them up and focus when it was time for the activity to end. So this is about home stress affecting work. These photos show how I like the kitchen. Basically, small amounts of washing up. So I washed up my breakfast stuff before leaving for work this morning. This is what greeted me after a beautiful 3-day holiday over the Anzac Day weekend. So I was lovely and relaxed as I walked in the door, and then of course I saw this mess, so the stress went through the roof. And needless to say, sometimes when Mum and Dad go on holiday, my supervisor has had to calm me down halfway through Mum and Dad being away when I'm beside myself with tiredness and frustration. Others mentioned about the open plan. For the benefit of people who don't know what an open plan looks like, I got one of my work colleagues to take some photos on Monday. So as you can see, very open environment. The postgrad office is here. At this time of year, they're constantly on the phone having to field inquiries from students because it's time for enrolments and expressions of interest for next year. There's interruptions from others. That's another view. And there's also the opportunity to have the short meeting at the desk, which of course we're all guilty from, but it does make for a noisy environment. But what's important to work successfully? Well, in November last year, just before my 30th birthday, I bought myself a car and got myself some independence, and I call this my track bike transporter because I like riding my track bike, and you can't ride a track bike on the road because it has no brakes. But this is the more recent purchase. I did the bidding myself on Saturday the 3rd of August, and now it's 35 days and counting to settlement. So obviously having my own 2-bedroom unit will make it a hell of a lot easier to work from home. It'll give me my own free space, and I'll be able to have the kitchen how I want it. I live with 2 23-year-old twin sisters, one of whom is a grot. It's the only way to describe it. And I also do quite a bit of teaching, and when I do have to go to Clayton in the afternoon, it'll be easier for me to work from home in the morning and then go to Clayton in the afternoon. And I'm also doing a little bit of recording of lectures. So you'll see this recording thing here, and that's because a couple of my work colleagues wanted me to do a practice, but I didn't have time. So I said, I'll record the lecture. So if Lyndall wants me to put this presentation up onto YouTube, I will be able to. And I have experimented with different types of videos, and the laptop has got an inbuilt microphone, which makes it very easy to do that. My advice to others, especially the younger ones in the audience, know your strengths and work to them, and follow your interests. And work should be enjoyable, but also follow your nose and take up opportunities as they arise. Because if someone had told me in year 12 when I was having panic attacks that I would be lecturing, I would have thought, hell, no way. Now, and one of the things that we were discussing a few meetings ago was, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And my supervisor and I had this discussion last year because we were making the decision, do I go down the route of a PhD or do I go down the path of GCAP, which is 4 subjects to do with teaching. And basically, if I wanted to lead a research group, I'd have to do a PhD. But I'm more interested in the teaching side of things, and I can see myself eventually coordinating a subject, even if it's in tandem. So doing the GCAP is most suitable for me. But also about the ICANN network, because Chris Varney now has arrived. So these are the 3 people who attended the Monash lunch last time: Chris Varney, myself, who then was a little bit late to the tutoring meeting, and James. So we're a network of students with Aspergers who support each other to achieve personal goals, and we aim to drive a rethink among young people and the community away from I can't to I can. So I, a couple of days ago, set up a Twitter account. So there's a few tweets and probably more to come. As Colin mentioned at the beginning of the evening, there's a Monash lunch tomorrow, which I'll be able to go to in person now because I've got the day off. And there's a camp planning workshop on Saturday. And World Vision Australia is near the corner of Burwood Highway and Springvale Road if you need directions. And here are my contact details, and this particular photo of 1 gold medal and 3 bronzes is actually my display picture on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. So, thank you.